What's up everyone, Smart TCG here, and I'm excited to be hopping into another PALDEA Evolved video. Typically my videos are focused on gameplay or deck lists, but this one will be a little bit different. Every new set, there are typically over 100 brand new cards that are released, and some people find it difficult to figure out exactly what you should be purchasing. In this video, my goal is to go over all the new important cards in the new set and what you should be spending your hard-earned money on. With that being said, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed these new fully edited videos, and I expect to do a couple of them per week. Alright, let's hop into it. Hopping into the first cards that are worth going over, we have Chien-Pao EX in the Baxcalibur line. Now, these cards are expected to completely reshape how water-type decks are built, and I'm super excited to see what people use with these cards. Chien-Pao is a card that is expected to be a deck on its own with Baxcalibur. However, Baxcalibur can honestly be used with any water-type Pokemon, and I think we'll see play for years to come. As more water-type Pokemon come out in the standard format, I expect Baxcalibur to become a huge staple in those decks. Currently, I would buy 4 Chien-Pao as it's expected to be a top-tier deck right out of the gate, and I would purchase a 4-2-4 Baxcalibur line. With Irida and Rare Candy, you don't necessarily need the Arctibax, as your main goal should be using Rare Candy every game to set up the Baxcalibur on the second turn. However, if cards like the Irida and Rare Candy potentially leave the format in the future, then having maybe a 4-2-4 line is going to be a good idea. But as of right now, this is what I would personally purchase out of these main water type Pokemon from the brand new set. They're both really good, and I think are going to show longevity in the standard format for quite some time. Moving on, we have Luxray, which has seen quite the talk recently in the community. At first glance, you might not think this card is relatively powerful, but if you take a deep dive into some of the other cards in the set, there's a combo that comes to mind that is expected to see play in many decks. First off, its ability allows you to put it right onto the bench if you have more prize cards than your opponent. On top of this, there is a card in the brand new set by the name of Reversal Energy, which we'll go into a little bit later, that counts as 3 energy of any type on non-rule box Pokemon if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent. There are plenty of Lightning Weak Pokemon currently in the standard format, and this makes this card very viable. As of right now, I would consider picking up just 2, as there most likely won't be any decks that use this as a main attacker, but it's a nice splashable tech though in some decks, and I think it will see some play. Moving on, we have Oricorio. Now, most people know Oricorio from its Fusion Strike counterpart that is played in VMAX, but this one also has a pretty interesting ability that I think is worth talking about. Its ability, Passionate Dance, allows you to heal 20 damage from your active evolution Pokemon. Since this ability stacks, you could theoretically have 4 of them on the field, healing 80 damage a turn from the active evolution Pokemon, which is really strong. Since this card should be relatively inexpensive at the release of PALDEA Evolved, it doesn't hurt picking up 4 of them. I think that this card is really underrated, and I think we'll see play in something. I'm just not sure exactly what yet. Next up on the list, we have Mimikyu. Arguably one of the more intriguing cards in the set. I think it has a ton of potential. Its ability, Safeguard, prevents all damage done to it by your opponent's Pokemon EX and V. We've seen this ability on a few Pokemon like Miltank and Decidueye in the past, and this effect has always been good over the years in the Pokemon TCG. Its attack is really not that special though, only dealing 70 damage to the active Pokemon for 2 energy. It's mostly good for its ability though, and I personally would recommend picking up 2 of them, as it could see some splashable play in different decks. Moving throughout the list of Pokemon, we have Squawkabilly. Now, this is a card that I think is going to see tons of play in decks, as it provides an incredible boost to consistency that many decks need. In decks that might not necessarily have a built-in draw engine like Mew VMAX or any deck that plays Bibarel, this card is going to find tons of use in decks that don't necessarily have that luxury. Its ability allows you to discard your hand on the very first turn of the game and draw a fresh new hand of 6. One of the nicest things about this ability is that it still activates when you Nest Ball for it. Cards like Lumineon V's Luminous Sign only activate from the hand once it hits the bench, but for Squawkabilly, you can activate it whenever you want during your turn. I think this is one of the best cards in the new set, and I personally would pick up 2 copies of it. Since its ability only activates on the very first turn of the game, it is relatively balanced and also means you won't need 3 to 4 of them, as it's only useful on that very first turn of the game. It's a really good card though. Moving on, we have Spiritomb. Spiritombs have always had really interesting effects on them, and this one is no different. Its attack Fade Out deals 10 damage and puts this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your hand, which is pretty interesting. Its ability, though, is why it's mainly being talked about the way it is. The ability Pitch Black Disaster turns off both players' basic Pokemon Vs in play. This is going to be incredibly powerful against decks that plan to use the new Squawkabilly, are focused around Lumineon V's Luminous Sign, or specifically use Genesect V's Fusion Strike system. I'm looking at you, Mew VMAX. Mew VMAX is one of the most powerful decks in the current standard format, and this card absolutely crushes its engine. I think as of right now, I would pick up just 3 of them. The issue with having heavy counts of this card in your deck is that you will oftentimes start it and not actually be able to function yourself. So typically you want to use this card after you have used potentially things like Lumineon V's Luminous Sign or Squawkabilly's own ability as well. So you got to be kind of careful with this card, but once you get it into the active, it can completely shut off engines of decks, and I think is one of the best cards out of the new set. Next up, we have Meowscarada EX. This is a card that I personally really like and I think has a lot of potential. Grass types have been kind of pushed away over the past couple of sets, and it finally is seeing new support, which makes me super happy as grass is one of my favorite types. Meowscarada is actually really good and I think is going to see play in the standard format. Its ability Magic Bouquet allows you to discard a grass energy card from your hand and you choose one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and you put 3 damage counters on it, which means if you have 2 or 3 of these on the field, you could be doing 60 to 90 damage a turn to whatever Pokemon you like. And its attack is incredibly powerful. Nail Scratch for just 2 colorless energy, which means it's going to be really easy to set up. Deals 100 damage, and if your opponent's active Pokemon already has damage counters on it, this attack does 120 damage more. So having for 2 energy to deal 220 and also having a really good ability, I just think in general is very strong. So I think that this card is going to see play, and I think that is a lot better than people are currently giving it credit for. I think it's a pretty good card. Personally, I would pick up 3 of them as of right now, because if you try to build a deck around it, you're probably going to need at least 3 of them. So card's good. I'm really excited to see this card actually have these type of really interesting effects on them, and I think that this is definitely going to see play. Next up, we have Forretress EX. Now, Forretress over the past several years has been very well known for having attacks or abilities that blow itself up, and this one is no exception. Its ability Explosive Energy, once during your turn, allows you to search your deck for up to 5 basic grass energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like, which in reality seems really good. However, there is a major drawback. If you search your deck in this way, this Pokemon gets knocked out and your opponent takes 2 prize cards. That is very bad. Its first part of the ability, though, I think makes it just good enough to potentially see play in decks like Wo-Chein. So I do think that this card does actually have some relevance. Just being able to get 5 energy and attach them to your Pokemon is incredibly powerful, but losing 2 prize cards at the same time is just so rough. However, I think Forretress definitely deserves its spot on this list, and I do think has potential to be good as we also get more grass type attackers that come out over the next couple sets. Currently, I would only get 2 of these as of right now, mainly because you don't necessarily want to build an entire deck around having 2 or 3 Fortresses on the field. You're typically only going to be using 1 per game, which means that you should only need 2 in a deck. So as of right now, I'd pick up 2. This card's pretty interesting, and I definitely think should see some play in some of these grass variants. Moving on to the last Pokemon I'm going to mention, we have Wo-Chein. The rest of the Pokemon will be on a compiled list at the very end of the video, so make sure to go check that out for all of those other Pokemon and how many of each of them I think you should be getting. But last up, we have Wo-Chein EX. For a grass, and colorless, it has a relatively okay attack, Devouring Ivy. This attack does 60 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon for each prize card your opponent has taken, so it does more for every prize card that they have taken. And then Forest Burn, dealing 220 damage, is relatively okay since you do have the brand new Forretress to be able to power it up. It's overall a relatively decent card, and once again, grass is getting more support, so maybe over time this card will get stronger and stronger with more cards that come out to help it out. I think its first attack is by far the most interesting attack that I definitely think is going to allow it to see some play in some Wo-Chein / Forretress variants. I think it's pretty decent. Personally, I would pick up 2 of them as of right now, as I think that you don't necessarily want to entirely build your deck around the Wo-Chein EX. I do think you need other grass attackers to use, like Forretress, to power up Wo-Chein and then any other grass attackers that you might have. So I think this is a good starting point. It's definitely a good card in these grass decks, but I don't think it's going to be an entire focal point of a deck as of right now. It's a decent card though, for sure. Moving on to item cards, we first up have Super Rod. Super Rod was a card that was released way back in Neo Genesis and has seen multiple reprints in the past 20 years. Super Rod allows you to put 3 of any combination of Pokemon and energy into the deck from the discard pile, which is quite frankly an amazing way to recover important resources. This is going to see play in decks like Gardevoir, Lost Box, and maybe Regigigas can become playable again. Please, Regigigas become playable again. I personally would pick up 3 of them because most decks should be running 2, but having the extra one won't hurt just in case. It's better to be safe than sorry. Next up, we have one of the best ways to recover energy, Superior Energy Retrieval. It has been quite some time since we've had this card in the standard format, and I am so excited to see it return. One of the best ways to ever recover energies is finally back and is expected to see plenty of play in decks like Chien-Pao EX and any deck in general that relies on using lots of energies to be able to achieve its strategy. I would personally pick up 4 of them, as it's absolutely critical card in a deck like Chien-Pao EX to be able to recover energies to take knockout after knockout. However, if you don't plan to play the Chien-Pao EX deck, then picking up 2 should just be sufficient. This card is going to see lots of play in different decks, and I'm so excited to see it back in the standard format. Next up, we have Charm of Courage. In previous formats, cards like Cape of Toughness and Big Charm saw plenty of play in decks that needed that little bit extra boost in HP, and Charm of Courage is expected to do this exact same thing. Charm of Courage boosts basic Pokemon HP by 50, which is going to help many decks out in the standard format. Specifically, this will see play in Gardevoir EX along with Drifloon's Balloon Blast attack, which deals more damage for every damage counter on it. With Charm of Courage, you'll be able to give this little Pokemon more HP, which will subsequently increase the amount of damage it can do. Currently, I would pick up 2 of them, as this is a card that you don't typically want to build your entire deck around, but definitely seems worthwhile to have a couple on hand just in case. And I think in Gardevoir, this will probably be a 1 or 2 count at most in the deck. Next up, we have Iono. In my opinion, this is the best card in the brand new set PALDEA Evolved. Similar to N and Marnie, this card has incredible comeback potential with just how disruptive it can be. Both players put their hand onto the bottom of their deck and then draw a card for how many prize cards that they have remaining. This is such a powerful effect, as it provides great draw support in the early game and also provides a fantastic comeback mechanic as well. This is a card that I would not hesitate to pick up 4. It just is that good and is going to make its imprint on the standard format for years to come. Moving on, we have Artazon. Artazon is a card that has been getting plenty of talk recently, and I think it is one of the better cards in the brand new set. Just being able to search your deck for basic Pokemon is really good in allowing yourself to get set up every game. However, there is a catch. You aren't able to search for any rule box Pokemon, which is important to recognize, as some of the best Pokemon in the game right now have a rule box. I think this will see play in decks like Lost Zone Toolbox, as that deck's entire strategy is built around getting tons of Pokemon into play to achieve their strategy. I personally would pick up 3 of this card, as I think some decks will base their engines around having this card. This card will definitely see more play when cards like Battle VIP Pass or rotate out of the standard format, but I do think that it deserves its spot in the metagame as of right now. Also, just having more strong counters to cards like Temple of Sinnoh and Path to Peak is really good for the metagame, because over the past couple of months, there kind of has been a lull in good stadiums being printed, so I'm really happy to see another solid one that is going to give players more options when they're looking for stadiums to put in their deck. Artazon, pretty respectable card, and I think we'll definitely see play. Moving on to the special energy in this set, we have Jet Energy, Reversal Energy, and Luminous Energy. All of them are very strong in their own right and will see play in the standard format. Jet Energy moves the bench Pokemon this energy was attached to into the active, which is great in decks like Lugia V-Star. Reversal Energy provides 3 of any basic energy when you're behind in the prize race. Decks that play Luxray, Shining Arcana Gardevoir, or Zoroark will get great use out of Reversal Energy. Luminous Energy provides every type of energy color, but as soon as a different special energy is attached, that effect goes away and it just counts as a colorless energy. Decks like Regigigas or Lugia could get use out of the brand new Luminous Energy, but I think it is the weakest out of the 3. As of right now, I would personally pick up 3 Jet Energy, 4 Reversal Energy, and 2 Luminous Energy. Moving on to some of the cards that I didn't necessarily give a spotlight to, we have Therapeutic Energy, which is great in decks like Lugia V-Star, which will prevent your Pokemon from being asleep, confused, and paralyzed. This definitely is going to see play in Lugia that are beginning to transition to a more Snorlax-ish type variant. Practice Studio makes each Stage 1 evolution Pokemon deal 10 more damage. Gresha allows you to draw up to 7 cards if you have no energy attached to your Pokemon, but only 5 if you do. And Glacamote discards a special energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon, which is going to be really good against decks like Fusion Mew. The Flamigo Wings of Unity engine, which is similar to Night March with Murkrow and Waterel, is really interesting, but my fear is power creep is going to destroy this archetype. Back in the day, decks like Night March were really good because your opponent's biggest Pokemon had 180 to 200 HP, and now you're going to be having to deal way over 300 on some of the biggest Pokemon in the standard format. Squawkabilly EX is a relatively solid Pokemon, but I think it is outclassed by Chien-Pao's raw power. Skeleurge in Chin-Yu is going to be a relatively decent fire deck as well. These are just some of the cards that I felt like were worth mentioning. Any of the other cards on this list as of right now, I think all have some potential, and I would personally consider picking some of them up. But with that being said, that is going to do it for the video. I hope that you found it informative. I worked really hard on this video, so thank you so much for all the support as always. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It's the best way to help me out as a creator. But with that being said, thank you so much for all the support. This is Smart TCG, and I'll speak with you again soon. Peace out.